and welcome back. My name is Emily and I'm here at the National Equestrian Centre because we are putting our Stages riding program online. This is lesson 4 in our Stage 1 series. If you've missed any of our previous videos, you can just head back to our channel and give them a watch. So super quick to watch, but really informative, so definitely worth a try. In the last lesson, we covered grooming the horse, and in today's lesson, we're going to be learning how to tack up and untack the horse. So tack refers to the equipment we use when we're riding the horse. So today we've got the bridle and the saddle. All of our horses have their own tack that is especially fitted to each of them. All horses are different shapes and sizes, so by having their own tack, it means that their own equipment is specifically suited to them and is going to be comfortable for them. We will also be learning a few more points of the horse, so have your diagram ready. We'll put the link in the description below. We have to make sure that the horse is properly groomed before we start tacking up. So if you're not sure how to do that, you can look at lesson 3 where we covered that in our last video. We're going to be using Tomiko again today. We met him last time. So let's go find his tack. The first piece of equipment that we're going to put on today is the saddle blanket or saddle pad. Now this is nice and soft and squishy, and what this does is provides a layer of protection and comfort between the horse's back and the saddle. Just like when we are leading, when we're tacking up, we do everything primarily from the left hand side of the horse. So with the saddle blanket, what we want to do is pop this on where the saddle goes. Now this area here where his neck and his back joins is called the withers. So you can add that to the points of the horse diagram. So the saddle pad sits at the middle part of the withers, which is usually the highest point, with the stripe going along his spine. So we're just going to pop this on. If you do end up putting the saddle pad in the wrong place by accident, what we don't want to do is drag it in the wrong direction, which is going to ruffle up all of his hair and make it uncomfortable. Instead, you're much better to end up putting it too far forward and then slide it back so that all of his hair lies back. This is the saddle. We want to make sure that it is the correct way around on the horse. So this area is called the pommel, and that goes at the front of the horse. This area at the back is called the cantle, and that goes at the back. So when we are putting the saddle on the correct way around, we want to make sure that it lines up with where we put the saddle blanket on. So we're going to place it nice and gently over the top of the horse. And this area on his withers, we want to pull the saddle blanket up so there's a nice gap there so it's not pressing down on his withers. Now we want to make sure that the saddle blanket is showing on either side of the saddle. We don't want it to be scrunched up underneath. Imagine walking around with your sock all scrunched up under your shoe and in your foot. It's not very comfortable. So we have to make sure that everything's sitting flat and we can see the edges either side of the saddle. We need to make sure that we check this on both sides of the horse. I'm going to pop around to the other side and make sure that everything is lying flat so it's going to be nice and comfortable for him. So the next piece of equipment we're going to learn about is the girth. So the girth is the thing that keeps the saddle in place, and it sits around this area of the horse, which is also called the girth. So that's one to add to your points of the horse list. So when we bring the girth down, we want to make sure that we look underneath the saddle flap here and make sure that these point straps, which is what the girth attaches to on the saddle, is lying straight and flat like this, not twisted around like that. So to do the girth up, we're going to lean our arm under and bring the girth around like this. So now we have to do up the buckles to the point straps. We want to do this really nice and gently. We don't want to just crank it up tightly because that might be uncomfortable for him. When we are doing up the girth, we want to make sure that we can see the horse's facial expressions and also watch out for their tail and their hind legs as well. If we are doing the girth up too tightly or too quickly, the horse will tell us with his body language and with his facial expressions. So ears back, looking around at us, maybe swishing his tail and stamping his foot. So we want to be aware of that. So what we do want to do is line up the girth points with the buckles. We're going to put it through the rolly part of the top buckle there, and we're just going to do it up gradually. So we're going to put one onto the second hole. Now as you can see, that's really, really loose, so we're going to need to do it up a little bit more, but we're just going to go one hole at a time. We want to make sure that the girth is on even holes at the point straps on both sides, so it distributes the pressure of the saddle evenly. So I'm just going to pop around to the other side and check. The last piece of equipment that we need to put on before we can ride is called the bridle. Now this goes on his head. Before we start, we want to make sure that the bridle is the right way up. So it should look like this and facing forward. Now because we are teaching beginner level here, what we want to do is make sure that the horse doesn't escape. So we put the bridle on over the top of the halter so we can make sure that the horse is secured all the time and we haven't got a loose horse running around. There are two correct methods for getting the bridle on. We're going to show you both ways today. So the first way, we're going to pass the noseband, which is this part here, into the hand with the top of the bridle, which is called the headpiece. We are going to quietly reach through the horse's ears and pass that up into this hand. Now as we do that, our left hand is going to support this metal part here, which is called the bit, and we're going to gently guide that into the horse's mouth. We're going to let the noseband down and we're going to push his ears under. Horses' ears are made out of cartilage, just like our ears, so they're pretty squishy, so it won't hurt him if you push the ears underneath the headpiece as you're putting the bridle on. The bit sits in the horse's mouth between the front set of teeth and the back set of teeth. In between those teeth there's a gummy part which doesn't have any teeth at all, so it's not going to bash on his teeth. So when we're putting the bridle on, we have to make sure that we don't clang it against his front teeth or his back teeth. He might let us have a look in his mouth. Let's just see if he will let us show you the gap there. So the second way to put the bridle on, which I prefer because I'm quite short, so I can't always reach up behind their ears. Instead, I'm going to put one hand around his face, pass the bridle up into here, guide the bit into his mouth, and then gently pop his ears through. And pull his forelock out so it's sitting nice and over the top of the brow band. So this long dangly strap that goes around his throat is called the throat lash. So that's the first part of the bridle that we're going to do up. We're going to do it up to this part here, and it goes over the top of everything, so including his halter. We're going to do the buckle up, and we want to make sure that we have 4 fingers width between his face, and that makes sure that it's going to be not too tight around his throat. The second part of the bridle that we need to do up is called the noseband. So that's the band that goes around his nose, and we need to make sure that this is tucked underneath everything, underneath these cheek pieces and underneath the halter. So we need to check that on both sides. So I'm just going to put under and make sure that it is all tucked under and that the noseband's sitting nice and straight. Come back again. And then I'm going to do this up underneath the halter. And for the noseband, we need to make sure that we can fit 2 fingers between the horse's face and the noseband so that it's not too tight around his nasal passages here. We need to make sure that we are always with the horse when we don't have the reins secured, and that you always got at least one hand on them. What we don't want to do is wander off and just leave them like this, because if the horse puts their head down to itch their leg or eat some grass, they could get their legs stuck through the reins, and that could be quite difficult for them. So Tamiko is all tacked up and ready to ride. So to take him up to the arena, what we're going to do, we don't want to leave the reins dangling, we're going to bring the reins back over his head, and we are going to unclip the lead rope from the halter. Now remember, in lesson 2 when we did safe leading, you lead the horse with the bridle exactly the same, except you've got 2 reins instead of the lead rope. So we're all ready to go. Okay, so we are back from a fabulous ride, and now we have to take all of his tack off again. So first of all, we're going to clip him up so we have him secured, and we're going to pop the reins back over his head. Now we take off the tack in the opposite order to the order that we put it on. So the first thing that we're going to undo is the noseband, and we're going to pull that outside of the halter so it's on the outside and doesn't get caught. Then we're going to undo the throat lash. Now to take the bridle off, we're going to put our right hand underneath the headpiece behind his ears, and with our left hand we're going to make sure that we guide the bit gently out of his mouth. Pull it nice and gently and let the bit drop nicely out of his mouth and catch it with our left hand. And then we're going to bring the reins back over, and that is the bridle off. To take the saddle off, we need to undo the girth. So we're going to pull the girth strap upwards, and it should just pop out like that. If not, we could just guide it with our hand, and we're going to let that swim down that way. Then we need to go around to the other side. Now you can take off the girth completely from the saddle, but because we have lots and lots of horses with their own equipment, we like to keep them attached so that they don't go missing. So to secure the girth so it's not dangling in the way, we're going to fold it up, pull it up through the stirrup, and just let it hang like this. To take the saddle off, we don't want to just grab it and yank. We want to do it nicely so that it's not going to kind of wobble the horse around. Instead, what we want to do is get one hand underneath everything at the front and one hand underneath everything at the back, and we're going to lift and slide it off. Lift and slide. It's important after you've finished riding and you've untacked your horse to groom the horse again. At least give them a brush where the saddle went, where the girth went, and around where the bridle went as well. And if they're really hot and sweaty, you can even give them a wash down, which we will learn to do in a later video. You might think that this lesson has now finished, but there is still one more crucial step before you put your gear away, and that is cleaning it. Cleaning your tack obviously keeps it looking good, but also prevents any breakages as well. And at the very least, you want to wash and clean off the bit which has been in the horse's mouth. You wouldn't want to eat your dinner using dirty cutlery, so we wouldn't want to put a dirty bit in the horse's mouth. So at the very least, we're going to make sure that we wash that off. And then we want to make sure that we wipe over the leather with a damp cloth of warm water. We're going to put the tack back exactly as we found it. So reins up over the headpiece, bridle the right way up. We're going to pop it back onto Miko's hook here. We're going to grab his saddle, and we're going to pop that back up, and we're going to grab his saddle blanket and pop that over his saddle so that it's all back nice and neatly. And that is the end of our lesson on how to tack up and untack your horse. If you want to put into practice everything you've learned in these lessons, you can have a go with your own horse. If you don't have your own horse, that's okay, because we have plenty. You can get in touch with us today, phone number, or email us and find out more about our riding lessons. Or you can contact your local riding school. If you enjoyed the video, please like and comment below. You can subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more videos in our series. We'll be putting up new videos every week. We'll see you next time.